Billy Joe Dupree was a man before his time. He was the prototype for the athletic, strong, quick tight end that would later become the norm in the 21st century.
His hands were so huge, he caught a one-handed pass over the middle, diving.
He was tough because he could and would block, and versatile enough to be the kind of receiver that people weren't looking for from tight ends when he played.
Billy Joe Dupree was a guy that if I was ever in trouble, I knew if I could find him, I could throw it to him. He may not get it, but nobody else would get it.
Dupree even played college basketball like Hall of Famers Tony Gonzalez and Antonio Gates.
But I'm just telling you, Billy Joe Dupree, if he'd played in a different era, he could have been Tony Gonzalez.
I catch a lot more passes.
The rare rookie to start for head coach Tom Landry, Dupree never missed a game over his 11 seasons with Dallas. The only player in franchise history to appear in more games without missing a single one is former 5-time Pro Bowl defensive back Cornell Green.
Well, the tight end position, ask any quarterback that's ever played the game, and they will probably tell you if there's one guy on the team that you need to trust the most, who is it? It's probably the tight end.
Biggest change that has transpired outside of what we've talked about was the contact aspects of it. They don't have as much contact as they used to. Some guy pop you side, slap you side the head. What do you think you're gonna do? Hey, next time he come me, I'm always elbow him side the head.
They trusted Billy Joe Dupree because he earned the trust. If Billy Joe Dupree, with his intellect and physical skill set, had played in a different era, he'd have been a lockdown Hall of Fame player.
Billy Joe Dupree was born and raised in Monroe, Louisiana, a city in the northeastern part of the state that was home to around 38,000 people in 1950.
Basically, it was a home that was filled with a mom and a family that took care of each other, rural area. We could call it country, boonies, that type of thing.
Unlike the overwhelming majority of those who reached the NFL, Dupree didn't grow up playing football. No, Billy Joe was a basketball player, which made sense considering he was always one of the tallest in his class. But that all changed one afternoon during his sophomore year of high school.
One of the girls in the class with me, we do homework together. A guy comes up, big guy, plays football, but he's not that aggressive type guy. I don't know what you're doing talking to my girlfriend, blah, 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 blah. He said, you know, you ain't nothing but a big old wussy. I beat the crap out of you play football. By that time, the assistant football coach came around the corner and said, oh, you guys need to be in class? And both said, yeah. And both of them disappeared. So as I came around the corner, there he was standing around the corner, said, you know he's right. He ain't nothing but a big wuss. So I took that as an insult.
Shortly thereafter, Billy Joe Dupree was at his first football practice. And sure enough, his coach called out two names during the opening contact drill.
It was the drill they called Bull in the Ring. And then he called my name out. Unfortunate or fortunate, the guy he called out was the same guy that made that threat to me. So I figured, well, shoot, this ought to be a piece of cake. This guy was like 240. I had to tackle him. So we got the ball, we met it in the middle of the deal. I tattooed him because a basketball player. My feet kept moving and I pinned him. I said, oh, this is great.
Dupree played defensive end and offensive tackle in his first two seasons, only touching the football when he punted. But his team advanced to the 2A Louisiana State semifinals his junior year. There, his life changed when his coach called a tackle-eligible play.
I'm thinking, oh, this kind of crazy because I like knocking people out the way and not getting hit. Called the play, quarterback threw the ball, he was rushed and he had to throw it because he wanted to save his life from getting knocked out. But he threw it at a distance that I had to go and get it, so I stretched out and caught the ball. And that was my first touchdown catch as a tight end, playing that position. Next year they moved me to tight end, and that's where I stayed until I retired with the Cowboys.
There were options for Billy Joe as his high school days were coming to an end. He could join the Air Force, or he could accept any number of basketball scholarships, his most appealing offer coming from the University of Houston. Or he could head north to play basketball and football at Michigan State.
Let me go as far away as I can, make myself be independent and do what I have to do without having to wimp out and say, well, I think I had enough, I got to go home. So I'm going to force myself to do this. So I went to Michigan State, and it ended up being a good situation for me and a great education in the classroom as well as out the classroom. So I really had a great experience there.
When the Lansing State Journal recently named Dupree among the 50 greatest players in Michigan State history, the newspaper wrote, "Considered the greatest tight end ever to play at MSU, he was ahead of his time, or simply around at the wrong time." Despite the Spartans running a wishbone offense, Dupree managed to catch 66 passes over his 3 seasons at Michigan State, the third most in program history at the time. The All-American was then selected by the Cowboys in the first round of the 1973 NFL Draft, the 20th pick overall.
I go to the phone. First thing out of Gil's mouth, "Billy Joe, aren't you excited? We just drafted you in first round." And I said, "Who are you really?" He said, "I'm Gil Brown with the Dallas Cowboys. We just won the Super Bowl last year." I said, "Well, that's good for you guys. What do you want to talk to me about?" He said, "What you said, we just drafted you in the first round. Aren't you excited?" I said, "Well, what can I do for you?" That enthusiasm that she was looking for, I mean, it wasn't there. I mean, I got a kid over here and a wife over here, and you out there. And you don't have anything to do with this environment right here unless you go enhance it. Oh, you offer me a job? Yeah, let's talk.
Indeed, Dupree proved to be a shrewd negotiator.
But I want you to understand, I was born a poor little black boy, and I don't have any problem being that. This money causes problems. So when I make a decision, it's going to be a decision not because of the money. It's going to be a decision of family and what's going on with family. So I think I'll take this and we'll just go and do what we have to do. But I will be back to see you. And whatever I ask for, whether it's above market, at market, or below market, is what I think I'm worth.
Head coach Tom Landry liked rookies as much as kids enjoy Brussels sprouts. There was a system. Watch year 1, come off the bench in year 2, and start in year 3. Skill position players especially didn't start. Not Don Meredith, not Roger Staubach, and not Tony Dorsett. However, Billy Joe Dupree was the exception to the rule, starting and even leading the Cowboys in receiving yards as a rookie in 1973. That success was due in part to his position coach during his first 9 seasons, a Hall of Fame tight end himself, Mike Ditka.
Mike's a good guy. I really appreciated having the opportunity to have that experience with Mike. I always had an understanding of where I was and who I was and my relationship with the people around me. And in that particular arena, I was an employee working a job for an employer. And the only control I had in that job was when I stepped on the field.
With that in mind, Dupree wasn't afraid to stand up to his coaches. An example came in a game against the rival New York Giants, and the scouting report Ditka shared with him during practice earlier that week.
And he'll never go inside. I asked a question. I said, "What if?" You know, don't even think about it, Coach said. We get to the game, 20-yard line area, running play call, in around the end. Guy that they told I would never do what he did. I look up and he's almost shaking hands with Roger. Here comes Mike waving his clipboard. cursing like a sailor. I said, Mike, let me tell you, what the heck you think's going on? Let me tell you something. I don't give a crap about what you think of what you do in so many words. That deal now, if you don't think I'm doing this job right, you get one of them other crazy SOBs on the sideline to do it, or you put this uniform on you yourself and you go out and do it yourself, but leave me the F alone. And Mike had to look on his face like, did he really say that to me?
Of course, nobody could do it better, earning 3 consecutive Pro Bowl honors from 1976 to 1978. Dupree was a security blanket for Hall of Fame quarterback Roger Staubach. And never more so than in the red zone, with Dupree catching a team-high 9 touchdown passes in 1978.
And Roger was one of those guys that, in a New York Minute, he was a competitor and his only objective was to win a football game. He didn't do it crazy, but every now and then he'd take his life and limb and do some things that coach said, no, Roger, don't do that. Meaning that don't run out of that pocket, stay in that pocket. But Roger was an instinctive player, and that's what made him the great player that he was during that time.
In the Cowboys offense, Dupree often only saw targets when the called play broke down and the quarterback needed to get rid of the football. Even when making the Pro Bowl in 1977, Dupree averaged just 2 receptions per game. He only caught more than 30 passes twice in his 11-year career.
Peyton Hendershot gets more opportunities in the offense as a rookie than Billy Joe Dupree did 3 and 4 years into his career, just because of the nature of offenses, the evolution of offenses.
Tom Landry understood that he had more than just a blocker. He had a guy that can make plays. And as Billy Joe got older, that's when Tom started to utilize him more and more.
The only thing Tom didn't let me do was throw the ball. I did everything else but throw the ball. Now, and the fact of the matter is, 20-yard lines in, I'm good to go. I'm as good as Roger's 20-yard line in at that time.
Dupe was that kind of a guy. He didn't care about getting attention or notoriety or any of that. He just wanted to win. One of my favorite teammates.
Playing in 3 Super Bowls over Dupree's first 6 seasons, win the Cowboys did. Dallas also made the playoffs in 10 of Billy Joe's 11 years and reached the NFC Championship game 7 times. For more than half of those seasons, Dupree also served as a captain and as the team's union representative.
You know, you expected Billy Joe to be that leader when it came to union business because he was involved in all business. He read Wall Street every morning. It was just part of his DNA. He had his own business at the time, and these were trailblazing opportunities that Billy Joe was taking advantage of, because I didn't know anyone else in the league that was doing that kind of thing except for maybe Roger Staubach.
Dupree started CWC Construction Incorporated in 1977, and within 5 years, the company was making more than $5 million annually with hundreds of employees. He was on the short list of athletes earning more money off the field than on it.
Billy Joe was a guy that he typified what the veterans were all about with the Cowboys. You know, he was just a steady professional, and he was one of the more unique teammates I've ever had. The intellect that he had and the prowess he had as a businessman, I had never really seen that before. So he was kind of that guy that showed me how a professional is supposed to act in the NFL.
I know how to work. Working is not something strange to me. So what's the problem? I have to go to work. Eventually, I'm gonna have to do it anyway, whether I do it with money in the bank or without money in the bank. Because if I got money in the bank, I got to work to keep it. If I don't have money in the bank, I got to work to get it.
The best players perform brightest on the biggest stage, and there is no bigger stage than the Super Bowl. When Dallas defeated Denver 27-10 in Super Bowl 12, Dupree caught 4 passes for a game-high 66 yards. Even more impressive, he had to play every offensive snap against the Broncos' Orange Crush defense because his backup, Jay Saldi, was sidelined with a leg injury.
and them boys didn't play. He threw that pass across the middle. I ended up catching it, but at the time that I caught and tucked the ball, I had to leave my feet, and one guy just flipped me. And I came down on the ball. I'm just wondering, what the heck's going on if I can't get up? But I said, well, shoot, I gotta finish this game. So they knocked the crap out of me, but I ended up getting up and finishing the game, and nobody else had to come back in.
Playing in 3 title games, which included 2 heartbreaking losses to the Pittsburgh Steelers in Super Bowls 10 and 13, were unquestionably the highlights of Dupree's NFL career.
That was one unique experience, and it's I guess it's a shame in a sense that every player that plays in the NFL doesn't have that experience. That was only one of my goals when I came into the league, to at least try to play in one Super Bowl and to do whatever I can to do that.
With his construction company thriving and ever the family first man, Dupree retired in March of 1984. A class act and team player until the end and beyond, he told head coach Tom Landry that he'd always be a phone call away if needed. At the press conference announcing Dupree's retirement, Landry said, "Our loss is the community's gain. The type of person Billy Joe is, he'll make an even more valuable contribution to Dallas than he has."
Billy Joe is a guy that he's always there for you. He's not a guy that's going to go out and campaign for anything. He's a guy that takes everything in stride, and his steadiness is something that I think Coach Landry always depended on when it came to the Dallas Cowboys offense.
I'm the first one in line to vote for Billy Joe Dupree for any recognition he could ever get, because I honestly cannot think of a person. I didn't know him off the field, I didn't know anything about his personal life, but I don't know a single person that would have a single negative word to say about Billy Joe Dupree.
He was a great athlete. He was the highest character person, he still is, that you could possibly have.
Tom Landry was one of those guys, he never would let anyone know that he's looking for outside advice. But I promise you, he and Billy Joe have had many conversations about the state of the Dallas Cowboys. And that lets you know the respect that Tom Landry and the Cowboys had for him.
His life hasn't been defined by playing for the Dallas Cowboys, although he's quite proud of his NFL career. Now 72 years old, Billy Joe Dupree has dedicated his last 30 years to charity work and family.
I'm a type of individual, when I tell you something, you can pretty much count on it. And I won't tell you something I can't or won't do. But on the other hand, if you tell me something, I expect for that to be something that I can believe in.
Still, in today's game, he'd be the star of stars, a 6'4", 225-pound athletic machine capable of blocking like a left tackle or catching the ball and running the field like a wide receiver. Instead, Dupree played in a different era, when respect was earned the old-fashioned way, and winning was the only objective.
You're describing as the tight end of the era. It's got to be a tough guy. So he told me this story. Dorsett's a rookie, so it's 1977. They're playing the Oakland Raiders. Matt Millen, in the offense's view, cheap shots Dorsett. As soon as he got an opportunity, he leveled Matt Millen and stood over him and said, "Young man, that's not how we do things in the National Football League."
So players got to be a little, I guess, considerate themselves about how they treat each other on the field. And it's a courteous thing. Play hard, but play fair.
You would see Billy Joe in the training room getting his ankles taped, and back then you could smoke cigarettes. So he was sitting there smoking a cigarette, cup of coffee, and reading the Wall Street Journal. That's Billy Joe Dupree.